Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jen Marples Show. Today, I've got a beautiful guest. Her name is Dr. Mary Claire Haber, and you've probably seen her all over social media because she is seriously one of the OBGYNs who are really out there helping educate about menopause. And before I get into her little bio, I just want to say that I was at a little cocktail reception in San Francisco last night with these incredible women. And I was mentioning that I was interviewing Dr. Haber, and everybody was like, oh my God, oh my God. I'm like, all right, ladies, what questions do you have? So we're going to dig into those questions. But the general resounding feedback, Dr. Haber, was everyone was so appreciative of you being out there so much, so often, with so much information for us, because women do not know, still to this day, in very affluent, crazy cities like San Francisco, what the hell to do about menopause. So Dr. Mary Claire Haber is a board certified OBGYN. She's based in Galveston, Texas. She has written the book called The Galveston Diet, which you all may have heard of. And she has a shiny new book that is about to come out. And we're going to talk about that. It's called The New Menopause. It's available for pre-order right now. And it launches in March. Is that right?
April 30th.
April 30th, it comes out. So it's, put it in your queue, ladies, put it in your queue. It's in my queue because we need all the information and all the things. And so Dr. Haber is going to go into all of that today. But without further ado, I just want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for being here. You are one of the guests that everyone is rearing to go, like, when is the show going to drop? Jen, I need information. So ladies, never fear. I got you. We got you. And we're going to get into all things menopause today and how we can really optimize everything that's going on so we can thrive. I mean, that's what this whole podcast is about, is to help women really optimize their lives and thrive in midlife. And that's what we're going to dig into today. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Haber.
I appreciate the opportunity.
So before we dig into the juicy menopause conversation, can you give everybody a little bit of a background about, I know you're an OBGYN, but now you're really coming up and out. You're an author, you've got supplements, you've got resources, you've got sort of a whole menopause empire that's meant to help all of us, which I love and appreciate. So tell us how you went from kind of A to B.
So like 2015, I was a very busy, very general OB-GYN provider. I did all the typical things you would have gone to your regular healthcare provider for. Delivering babies, pap smears, contraception, and I was super good at it. I worked at a large academic institution. I was also teaching medical students and residents. I was actually a residency program director, so in charge of the curriculum for the residents as dictated by the American Board. That is the year where my menopause manifested very loud and proud, and my brother passed away. And that kind of 1-2 hit, also had 2 teenagers, also had a husband who worked overseas, and ailing parents. So so much of what all of us are going through at this age was happening to me. And, the bottom fell out of my life. I was like, I didn't even recognize my own menopause. I thought I was grieving. I was grieving for sure when my brother passed away, but I was attributing many of the symptoms to my grief, the lack of sleep, the irritability, the mood swings, the weight gain due to not eating. Certainly grief had a part, but once the grief started to lift and I was still in that same pattern, and I thought, whoa, when was my last period? Like it was so off my radar at 48. I didn't even know what was happening. Now, up until that point, I'd been on birth control pills for contraception and control of PCOS. So my menopause was kind of masked by that treatment. And then I got off right before my brother died and everything broke loose. And, in my journey to fix myself, I realized there's so much out there that I didn't realize that wasn't being put forth to me about menopause care from the American Board of OB-GYN. I wasn't doing extra reading. I was just kind of trying to stay in my lane and deliver the babies and stay up all night. And I was so busy doing all the usual stuff, I didn't realize the gap in my own knowledge and that I was failing my menopausal patients as well as myself. So I kind of fixed me first and realized there's a bigger message here. So I just kind of innocently started talking about it on social media, developed a nutrition program for the weight gain that myself and my patients were going through at this age. that kind of exploded. But as I was talking about menopause and weight gain, more people just wanted to know about menopause in general. And that's where kind of the menoverse, that's what we call it over here, opened up for me. That the question, tens of thousands of DMs of questions of people begging for more answers. And I thought, there's a much bigger message here. So I got busy on social media, answering all these questions, started making friends with other people who were kind of doing what I was doing, started going to menopause conferences, getting really active in that world. And that kind of like spawned where we are today. So in 2021, I took a huge leap of faith. I left my very solid, dependable job that was sucking the life out of me because of the administrative burden. I love the babies. I love my patients, but like all the paperwork and the insurance, scams, I just said, let me see if I can open a menopause clinic. I did not know, Jen, if it would be successful. I was like, well, I'm going to take a week and a prayer. I'm going to bet on myself this time. I quit my job, and open a menopause clinic all by myself. I'd always been employed my entire career. Here's your stethoscope. Here's your computer. Go start seeing patients. I had to learn it from the ground up, and I didn't know if it'd be successful. I moved it close to Houston because that's a bigger town than Galveston. I could have put it on the moon and it would have filled up immediately. Like, I have a 2-year waiting list. We had to stop taking new patients. I've hired 2 nurse practitioners. Like, this is the most successful thing. And it just drives everything for me. And then from that, I have a background in nutrition. So I was trying to recommend supplementation. I couldn't find good, high quality supplements at a reasonable price. I decided to make my own. That turned into a business opportunity. I'm starting to teach other healthcare providers how to do menopause care the way I've figured out how to do it. That's another business opportunity. So, I've turned into this entrepreneur after the age of 50 in my own menopause, and it's really kind of fabulous. I'm more successful than I've ever been in my whole life. So, and no regrets for the life that I had before and the babies that I delivered and the wonderful care that I did, except for menopause care. But I'm so glad that I found this opportunity where I can serve the greater good and these women who have been just left behind medically.
Oh, well, I love this. And I kind of got chills because you said, a woman over 50, I'm more successful than I've ever been. And that is what I'm all about. It's what we're all about, because I firmly believe in the best phase of our life, but we need this support for menopause. But the fact that you saw the need and kind of went on a wing and a prayer thinking that this was going to be something that women needed. And lo and behold, and we're seeing this all over the place. So women are crying out. And I'm one of them, crying out for information, crying out for resources. And at this small event I was at last night in San Francisco with sort of the best of the best all around us, women are like, why aren't no one's talking about this? We're all suffering in silence. No one is talking about this. And of course, you and I are in the same sort of circles, sort of, in this menopause conversation. I mean, you a lot more than me, but these women are out there with sort of all these resources. And of course, they see you on Instagram, but they're like, no one's talking about it. We're kind of living in shame behind a mask of like, this is something that's happening to all of us. So not only it's not okay to talk about our age, but we're certainly not going to talk about, night sweats and dry vaginas and all the stuff that comes up because, there's a lot of shame involved. It's crazy. So thank God you're doing what you're doing and helping to educate other medical practitioners, because other doctors I've had on the show too have said that. Obviously, I know you don't get this training in medical school. You said it yourself.
Right? No, we have very little, almost negligible training in medical school. And as an OB-GYN resident, I think I got 6 hours, maybe total, and no clinics, no clinical experience directly in menopause. So, and all the things I've been able to do, including surviving one more brother death and my dad, and, kids going off to college, empty nest, all the things, I could not have had the mental space to do it had my menopause not been treated.
Oh, I'm sorry for your losses too. It seems like it's always like a perfect storm, and this is midlife, right? Mm-hmm. We were talking, everyone, before we got on, of just, we all know, you guys have heard it on this show, that everyone's hard charging in careers, teenagers, and I've got 3 teens, one about to go off to college, and I have women, I'm 54, women my age who have much younger kids because they started later, but we still have the same aging parents. So it's this perfect storm. And if we don't have our health in check, we've got nothing. We can't cope. We just simply can't cope. And it's really hard. We've got so much on us at this point, but there's also so much wonderful possibility, but we've got to like stable. And that's what we're going to, you guys, don't worry. I'm going to extract everything I can from Dr. Haber today of how we can sort of optimize and understand what's going on, first of all, and then how we can, figure out what we need to do to get that stability and to get treated and to, live a vibrant life, because it's all, like we just said, it's all hard enough. So let's not have the health thing get in the way. So with that, let's dig in about the nutrition piece really quick, because I have not talked about it yet on the show. And, there's talk about an area where people get so much information, disinformation. It's like there's kale here, there's fasting here, there's don't eat nightshades here, there's quit alcohol. There's just so much.
Yeah.
What the hell do we do?
Okay.
What do we do to have good nutrition?
First of all, don't assume good nutrition is, it when you see it. So many of my patients and my students in the Galveston Diet program are like, no, but I eat healthy. I'm like, okay, let's break down. Let's throw healthy out the window. Let's not talk about healthy. Are you eating a pro-inflammatory diet or an anti-inflammatory diet or neutral? What does that mean? Well, we have validated scoring systems for that. You can look at dietary recall and look at things we know promote inflammation, like, high levels of processed meats, processed carbohydrates, not rocket science here. So, how much of your diet is filled with lean meats, with vegetables, with fruits, with legumes, with seeds, with nuts, with things that we know fight inflammation naturally. When we're looking at kind of the core components for menopausal women, and I've done a tremendous amount of reading on this and looked at it over and over again, we know that there's some key deficiencies that women have across the board in menopause. One is fiber. The average woman in the US who thinks she's eating healthy is getting about 12 grams of fiber in her diet per day, and she needs minimum 25. When they found the women who, and this was, I think, the SWAN study, when they found the women who were having more than 25 grams consistently in their diet per day, they had less visceral fat, lower blood pressure, and better insulin resistance, lower diabetes, therefore. So, fiber in your diet is huge. Now, that does not mean, and I'm a fiber sale, I sell fiber, so take this into full account, does not mean you need to run out and buy a fiber supplement. When you eat food that is rich in fiber, like the nuts, the seeds, the legumes, the fruits and veggies, they're packed with a lot of other stuff that's healthy too. The anthocyanins, the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients. So you cannot just assume when we say a diet rich in X that you run out and buy that supplement. You're way better off getting it through food, because more than likely the foods that are rich in that one particular nutrient are rich in multiple other things that are going to keep you healthy long-term. So 25 or more grams of fiber per diet per day. I don't love restriction, but there's one key thing you really, really, really should put a bunker on. Not to say never, but added sugars. I'm not talking about the natural sugars found in fruits and vegetables. I am talking about sugars added in the processing of foods. So either you add it through cooking, you add it through processing, it's in alcohol, but women who limit those added sugars to 25 grams per day, that is 4 tablespoons, okay, consistently have much lower visceral fat. Visceral fat is what we use as a measure for chronic disease risk. It's really the easiest way to do that. Much less visceral fat, much lower insulin resistance, just do better. Third thing, there's a few things that we know that women are deficient in the vitamin mineral, world. One is vitamin D. 85% of my patients are deficient in vitamin D, not just low. I'm talking like bottomed out low. Multiple reasons for that. We're protecting our skin against the sun. We're not absorbing as well with age. Menopause changes our gut microbiome, all of that. So with that, for most women can take the vast majority, 4,000 international units of vitamin D a day safely without worries of toxicity. You can really, now some women need more than that. And that's something you need to work out with your doctor through kind of serial lab testing to see what's going on. But, so I'm recommending fiber to get you to at least 35. Watching those added sugars, I'm just going through this again. And then, you need a vitamin D supplement. The one I created for my patients has 4,000 IUs of vitamin D. Also, I threw some omega-3 in there. That's a really powerful antioxidant, and has vitamin K to increase the absorption and the bioavailability of the vitamin D. Turmeric can be really helpful for a lot of patients. It's a really great antioxidant, anti-inflammatory as well. It has pretty low bioavailability as found in nature. So you can like bind it with black pepper extract, pepperine, to increase the absorption. But women who have diets rich in turmeric or take turmeric supplements have seen decreasing visceral fat as well as arthritic pain. It's kind of a natural anti-inflammatory to help with the joint pain. Probiotics, that's not one I sell. You should really try to get probiotics through your diet, but some people, dairy is a great source for yogurt. Some cheeses have the probiotics in them, but if you can't tolerate dairy, of course, you don't want to eat that. You can kombucha, miso, Chinese pickles. There's lots of, but most Americans don't eat a lot of that stuff. So because of that, I'll recommend a probiotic supplement. My favorite one is from that's my magnesium. My favorite one is from Garden of Life, and it's the encapsulated one. It's the women's 85 billion. So MAG is something that can serve a lot of women. We have fat soluble minerals and nutrients that you basically, a blood level will kind of give you an idea of what you've been running for a long term because you store it, versus water soluble, like the mag, the calcium, the potassium, and a lot of your vitamins. Those are stored in fluid. So you pee them out every day. So like a one-time low or a one-time high value is rarely diagnostic. That's one of the things I'm like, track your nutrition intake and see how much mag you're getting. And you only want to supplement the gap. One of the things I do not recommend routine supplementation is calcium. You really should fight to get your calcium through food. Calcium supplements have been shown to increase kidney stone risk, and the cardiologists hate it. They think that it increases the calcification rates of the atherosclerotic plaques in the heart. So they are not recommending routine calcium supplementation. Certainly if you have a calcium disorder where you're excreting too much through the urine, there's a few conditions, but just your average woman, you really should fight to get that 1,200 milligrams through food. If you need to supplement, only the gap, including osteoporosis.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah. This is my life. This is what I do.
I know. And so I'm taking mental notes. Of course, I'm going to have the transcript. Everyone, this will all be in the show notes. Don't worry. You don't have to memorize this if you are walking or driving, listening to this. I'm going to make sure you have it readily available. And of course, we're going to link all of these Dr. Haber's resources in the show notes. So I made a mental list of all the things I'm not doing and all the things I need to be doing, adding in. I have a question too about fasting, because it seems like that's just one of these things where go on a week-long fast, or just fast for 18 hours, or fast in the morning and have your first meal what is the ideal? Because I know a little bit enough to know that obviously our bodies are different now than they were when we were in our 20s and our 30s, and we process things differently. So what's the skinny on fasting?
So much. I love fat. First of all, I love the theory of fasting. The fasting has not been shown to be great for long-term weight loss. So don't do it as a weight loss program. Okay. What it is good for is for lowering inflammation through autophagy and lowering your insulin levels long-term. So when I was formulating Galveston Diet and I was looking at studies done in women who were elderly, older, menopausal, because it's crazy. You're either doing studies on 25-year-old athletes who are tip-top shape, or the very elderly, 65 plus, 70s, and in medicine, 65 is elderly. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I am almost there. And so I wasn't seeing a lot of studies done in this core group of 40 somethings, 50 somethings, early 60s. So here's what I could cobble together. The decreasing inflammation rates, especially neuroinflammation. And if you have a family history of dementia and Alzheimer's, you want to go look at these studies, is really, really good for fasting. And those studies were mostly done with a 16-8, 16 hours of eating and 8 hours of fasting. Where we run into trouble with extended fasts is at our age. When we go through menopause, several things happen. As our estrogen levels decline, our testosterone levels decline as well. We start shedding muscle much faster than we ever did in our life. In our early years, up to about age 25, 30, we're constantly recycling bone and muscle. We break it down, we build up more. And in osteoporosis, we start breaking down more than we're building up, right? To a point where you become osteoporotic. Muscle loss, same thing happens. It's called sarcopenia, where we start breaking down more muscle and not building it back enough to keep up with the turnover. And so when you're adding in fasting to that, You will lose weight if you do these extended fasts, but you're not able to, you're going to lose muscle. You know, extended fast, extended caloric restriction leads to weight loss as far as the number on the scale. Half of what you lose is muscle. Only half is fat. Do you know how long it takes to build muscle? This is one of the sad things. It's so fast for you to lose bone and muscle, and it takes 3, 4, 5 times as longer to build it back up. And so I worry in these extended fasts that you are sacrificing your muscle to get to numbers on the scale. You know, you will have some benefits short term, but I think long term, extended fast, you know, and even some of my patients and my followers struggle in that 8-hour window to get enough calories, to get enough protein, to stay healthy. And I'm like, back it off. It's not worth it. We've got to feed our bodies to stay healthy, enough nutrition, you know, and don't worry so much about the number on the scale. That does not represent your risk of chronic disease. That is, if your followers take nothing away, the number on the scale, your BMI, is not a great indicator of your risk of chronic disease. And at our age, women are not coming in saying, not very few, less than 2%. I've had a couple. I just want to look good in a bikini again. I just want to be skinny. They're like, I see my mother and I don't want that. I do not want to be frail. I do not want to be able to not take care of myself. I don't want to be on a walker at 70. I want to be able to take care of myself, play with my grandbabies if you have any, you know, like they're very focused on that part of their life and what they want their health to look like. And those decisions we're making right now, these patterns we're setting in, and I don't think extended fasts are going to get you to that goal.
That is such great information. And I was just having this conversation too about, I think something happens, just the mental thing that happens too. And you said you had like the small 2% who want to look good in the bikini. I do think, and let me know what your patients say, that once you kind of go into menopause, I'm 54, so I've been postmenopausal for a couple of years. I just don't care as much. Like I do care more about, like I exercise every day. I try to lift heavy, you know, I've got to be better. I've got to do more. And after listening to you, I clearly need to add some supplements, and I got to look at like what's on the shelves. And I've also got 3 teenagers in the house, which is just a lot of shit, but they can eat it. Damn it. Like looking at my 18-year-old son.
Empty nesting really helped me focus.
Just like, what is this stuff in my house? And so women kind of look at me who haven't kind of transitioned yet. And I used to be one of those where you're kind of like, you're like, am I really fit? Am I, you know, do I have 5 pounds to lose? I can't go on that vacation until I drop all that weight. But now, you know, just having been during the holidays, I was sick for 2 weeks and I lost so much weight. I had like a really bad cold, but it was like the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my, and it happened fast. And it's like, and now like back in the day, like, oh, great. You know, I lost weight, but now I'm like, no, I could see it in my body going back to yoga and lifting of what happened just in 2 weeks of not staying on top of everything.
So I'm glad you said that. I read this study years ago when I was formulating Galveston Diet, and it talked about that exact thing, that as we age, we're going to be sick. We're going to fall. We're going to break stuff, you know, like this is kind of inevitable. And what you're doing in the interim periods is storing up for those times, because our muscle loss is going to be so dramatic during that time. And, you know, the more active you are, the less likely, you know, you need to build up that muscle as a bank for those inevitable times where we're just not going to get better faster. We're not going to get on our feet as fast. And each illness and each injury is, you know, is like, we're kind of cruising along and then, and it's less about the day-to-day loss and more about how we're losing it in these chunks as we go through the illness and the injury. And that really kind of set, you know, hearing you say that really brought that article back to me.
Well, I'm glad I mentioned it, because it was kind of shocking to me. I was like, wait, what is happening? And then, because you know, we're all trying to work hard and do the right thing. So this brings me actually to another question about protein. Do we need to be eating like whatever my body weight is? Do I need to be eating my body weight in protein every day?
So you know, because I read all the medical articles, I'm always doing kilograms because that's how they're written. And so here's kind of how I talk to patients. So when they went back and looked, so there was a few really key studies. There was a nurses study, the SWAN study, and then the WHI, and they actually did a lot more measurements than just breast cancer and all those things, and they really looked at intake and muscle mass and resilience and all the things. And what they found was that the women who were eating 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein for every kilogram of lean body mass. So lean is, just think of what your like goal weight is. Like when were you're like fighting weight, and that's usually a pretty good panacea. I can measure it in my clinic, but most women know, yep, at 125 solid muscle, I was, with no fat, that was me in my 30s probably. And when that was effortless, just living my best life. And that is not me now. We have much more fat than muscle than we used to. So, and then women who weigh like 1.7 had the lowest frailty scores. Like 1.2 seems to be the inflection point where you're heading out of the frail zone, of not being able to take care of yourself as you get older and on a walker and falling and breaking and all that stuff. So protein is key there. So take your fighting weight, divide it by 2.2. That's kilograms, right? So say it's 50 kilograms, and then you're going to multiply that by, 1.2 to 1.6, somewhere in there. And I usually do 1.5 for my patients. And then I set that protein goal. And for most of my patients, depending on their height, their BMI, their muscle mass, it's somewhere between 80 to 120, because women are all built differently. To keep those muscles fed and help them get strong. Now, if they are sarcopenic, they're coming to me and they have extremely low muscle mass, I'm adding to that for them. So it's not a quick 101, but as it turns out, most women are getting about 60-ish, 65 maybe grams of protein on average per day. And that's a huge deficit. So they're, when they need 80 to 120, my personal goal is 100 a day, 100 grams. Okay. And it's hard.
That can feel
really
hard.
Be protein centric, to do it.
Oh, okay. That's another thing I'm going to be evaluating on the list. We've got our list. We've got a list. We've got a big list, but it is, I know just from the stuff I've read too, that it is really important, but you have to really be on top of this stuff. I try to do, the only way I get it in the morning is just by doing a shake, because I don't even know how many egg whites or something I have to eat to start the day off right. As far as other supplements, last night I asked the ladies I was with, because they were so excited. I was talking to you about different supplements, and one woman was like, ask her about creatine.
Creatine, yeah.
And so I actually haven't heard much about creatine. So what's that all about?
So when we look at the musculoskeletal unit, okay, and it's hard to talk about osteoporosis without sarcopenia. So all of this is about osteoporosis prevention. When you do a creatine supplement, you're not doing it to be skinny. It may help with that, whatever, but you are basically doing it to promote muscle mass and bone density. And that musculoskeletal unit works together, okay? So studies were done on women with osteoporosis, on the elderly, like in nursing homes and have them do creatine plus resistance training, and just resistance training. And the women who did creatine plus resistance, you got to do the work, you have to stimulate the muscle to get bigger by doing push-pull, something, lifting heavy, and as heavy as your muscles and bones will bear. And so I see all, 5 pounds and people doing the same 5 pound weights, 8 pound weights over and over and over again. I'm like, no. We need to get stronger. You need to go to the point of failure so that your brain is stimulating those muscles, sending out those hormones to be like, hey, we need some hypertrophy here. And so creatine in conjunction with resistance training seems to be more effective than just resistance training alone. Creatine plus adequate protein intake plus resistance training is the magic. And consistency is the magic.
Okay.
So,
all right.
The studies were done, 5 grams per day of creatine is kind of the base dose. Most of the studies did a loading dose. So they were doing like 20 to 25 a day for 2 weeks, and then moving on to 5 to kind of build up the creatine stores in the muscle.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So then we got to throw that one in. So we have got a shopping list. Shopping list. So now I want to pivot, because I could talk to you for 2 hours and I know I can't. So we've got the nutrition thing sort of sorted. Now let's go into sort of the quick, like, I know everyone's going to be different and everyone's got to talk to their doctors about individual hormone replacement therapy and all that. What is sort of, because I've seen you talk about this online, what is sort of the ideal kind of cocktail of hormone therapy for the average woman going through menopause that doesn't have any other contraindications, cancer scares, all that kind of thing?
Right. So we have to think about, what are we replacing? Like, what's missing? And so the ovary was the source of almost 100% of the estradiol. Okay. We do make other estrogens like estrone. Estrone is the main one in menopause. The main hormone in menopause, if you're not on hormone therapy, is estrone. It's made in the fat cells. Okay. Estradiols, which are ovaries made, it's the most powerful, the most bioactive, what it blows estrone away. But once it goes away, when our ovaries fail, then all we've got left is the fat cells. Okay. And the adrenals do the precursor and they move out to the end tissues. And, there's an aromatization of testosterone and we make estrone. So we're replacing estradiol, which is what our ovaries make. We're replacing progesterone for most patients, which was kind of what was the second half of our cycle. But man, my patients are finding it so helpful for sleep and anxiety at night. And they're just resting so much better. So every woman who has a uterus without a Mirena IUD in it must take a progestin if they are having treatment with some estrogen. And my preferred formulations are estradiol and progesterone, because that's what your ovary used to make. Now there's other options, synthetic options for that. They have their place. I love having options, but that's my go-tos. And then testosterone is a very important hormone. Our levels don't go to zero for most of us, but they do decline significantly. And our testosterone levels in nanograms per deciliter are higher, 2 to 3 times higher than our estrogen levels. It is a female hormone, just men have more. So we always associate it with men. We are so lagging in the studies on the benefits or, risks of testosterone. And, the BioT people started making the testosterone pellets for men. And they're like, whoa, let's get women on here. And then they started dosing them like teenage boys. And so most of my colleagues who I respect, we stay in the physiologic ranges of testosterone, whereas meaning what you would have made at 25 at your best, most, but besides sexual benefit, which we know, and that's been well studied, we know that most likely, there's testosterone receptors in your brain and your bones and I'm using it off label all the time for brain fog, for low muscle mass, for bone density. It can be very, very helpful in these situations. And also, so like my osteoporosis starter pack is creatine, Fortibone collagen, resistance training, adequate protein, and testosterone. Before we go to alendronate or Boniva or any of that other stuff. Going straight to those very symptomatic medications, which can be helpful. We got to, one, get a bone density way before you have osteoporosis. Go pay out of pocket, pay the $50, $100 and go get one. And no, if you're osteopenic, you need to be on that protocol.
It's so fascinating about testosterone because I feel like I just started hearing about it because, again, we always just associate it with men. And then I heard, it was probably you talking about it, how it actually helps with the bone, like, because with our bone loss, right? And you just confirmed it again, saying all that you just did. So there's another thing on my list I've got to talk to my doctor about. So here's a question, and I know from my own, I was talking again last night about this, but I've talked about this ad nauseum. When I was like you, I was on the pill till I was 50. I had endometriosis, and then I'd briefly gone off of it, and all hell broke loose, and I put myself back on the pill. And my doctor was like, 50, then you're off, and then I just never had a period again. And then I'd started hormone therapy then, but it sort of scared me. I had like weird symptoms. I was like bloated. I felt super emotional. So it kind of scared me off of it until a couple months ago, which is weird because I do all this work. I'm interviewing doctors like you. I'm in this sort of world of midlife. And I'm like, I think, but this is, you've actually said it yourself, we don't really pay attention to ourselves. All of a sudden something popped up. I'm like, I don't think it's brain fog. I thought I had like adult ADD. Basically was my big, of course. And then there's all, hot flashes and other things, but I felt like that was manageable. What wasn't manageable was the mom. I already told you that 3 times. I'm not answering you again. The inability to do work at the level that I'm used to working, of like the 80 sticky notes and still not being able to like focus. I'm like, this is having a really negative impact on my work. I went on hormone therapy, Dr. Haber, and I swear to God, within like 6 days, I was like, I wasn't like, oh, look, there's a squirrel anymore. I was like, I can focus.
Yeah.
And so it makes me, for everyone listening, if you're having I mean, I know there's so many symptoms and we probably won't go into all of it, but for being where we are in life and hard charging careers, and like we talked about, aging parents and the kids, and I just went through college there's so much on our list that we're doing every day. To feel like you're basically losing your shit is a scary place to be.
Mm-hmm.
So can you take us through just sort of the benefits of like our brain? Because it's still to this day, and I know the study has been debunked, but there was that study that was 20 years ago that scared everybody off hormone therapy.
WHI, yeah.
And people are still scared. I hear the chatter and people are like, I don't want to do it.
So, every, like in the last couple of years, a couple of small observational, like ridiculous studies got blown out of proportion on social media and in the news about dementia and HRT and all that stuff. Look, 45 studies reviewed, massive. That's a massive, overall, if you start hormone therapy within 5 years of your menopause, you are much less likely to develop dementia. If you have the ApoE4 gene, okay, which is the Alzheimer gene, one of the Alzheimer related genes, and you were lucky enough to happen to have been prescribed hormone therapy as early as perimenopause, you will decrease your risk or decrease the onset. You will delay the onset of Alzheimer's and the severity of your disease with hormone therapy. It's incredibly protective of the brain, but we have a window of opportunity. Okay. And so when I'm counseling patients about cardiovascular disease and neurodementia, I'm like, okay, listen, neurodementia and cardiovascular disease are related to the times how long our body goes without estrogen. It's less to do with HRT. It's more to do with how much time did we go off? Okay. How much time were we away from it? And you are more likely to develop cardiovascular disease the longer your body is without estrogen. The studies were done for 10 years or up to age 60. That's why those numbers are there. It does not mean you may not have benefit after 10 years of the age of 60. It means that we can only say, because of studies that, and that's out there. The WHI has been debunked, has been retracted, but there was a big fanfare when it was released and the world went crazy. It was the #1 medical story of 2002. #1 health story in the news was estrogen causes breast cancer and heart disease and all this stuff. So you are most likely to have cardiovascular benefit the earlier you start, the shorter the time period that you have away from your estrogens, especially if you go through menopause on the young side. Okay. Again, because when you go through the young side, that's a longer time you have to live without estrogen. The best estrogen in the world is the one you make naturally. But that's going to stop one day. And we haven't figured out how to delay that. I think we would be unstoppable. We would live a lot longer if we could figure out a way to stop menopause and not get pregnant. No one wants to have a baby. Well, very few of us want to actually continue childbearing, but we'd like to hang on to some estrogen enough to keep us healthy.
Yes, please. So I'm assuming with the new book coming out, the new menopause, so what do you cut? I'm not going to assume anything about the book because I haven't read the book. It's not out yet, but tell us about the new book. Because clearly everyone, I could be talking to Dr. Haber for hours and I can't, but I'm assuming we got a lot of information that we need in the book coming out. So tell us what it's all about.
So Galveston Diet, a lot of people like, well, how does it different? Galveston Diet was a nutrition and lifestyle plan for midlife and menopause. Okay. How to eat, what to eat, fasting, all about it. Is this for you? Meal plans, recipes, that last half of the book. Okay. This book is more of a top to bottom menopause guide. We do touch on nutrition, but I already wrote a book about that. So I'm more focused on, I do the history of menopause, why we have ended up where we are with the state of menopause care, what you can do about it, how to advocate for yourself, what questions to ask your doctor, like in detail. We have like quizzes you can take to guide you if you're in perimenopause or not. We have a full expose on hormone replacement therapy. What formulations are out there, what works, what the studies have shown. I try to break it all down in layman's term for you. And then the last part is what we call the toolkit. And so when a patient comes to me, Hormone therapy is one small part of my prescription to her. We talk about nutrition, we talk about exercise, stress reduction, sleep, supplementation, all as part of her package, okay, to get her to her best health for the rest of her life. And so the book really covers on that. We talk about the 70 symptoms of menopause, everything from frozen shoulder, tinnitus, vertigo, burning tongue, dry skin, vaginal atrophy, all the things, everything, sexual dysfunction, and what we know hormone therapy helps with. I do it top to bottom. What HRT we know helps with, what we think it helps with, what supplements can do, what you need to do for exercise and, to help, so I try to cover each part of the toolkit in each symptomatology. So we call it symptoms and solutions. So, and it's a lot of validation. You're not crazy. This is why this is happening. It's happening to 100% of us. Every woman is going to have their own unique expression of their menopause. It's going to affect them differently. What if you are not a candidate for HRT? What can you do? We go through all of that in the book.
Well,
and it's for everyone, for your partner, for your daughters. Like my daughter's radicalized. Like she's in medical school. She will never go through menopause. She's like, nope, I'm just going straight to HRT. I'm not even missing a beat, but something you would hand to your 35-year-old, 30-year-old, like get ready, read this. So what's coming, what's happening, and you're not blindsided by this, oh my God, this might be my menopause. Let's get started. Let's start doing the work, so that you can not end up where so many women are today.
I know. I love that your daughter's radicalized. I've got two daughters also. And part of this, my own journey, I actually sat down with the family and said, this is what I'm going through. This is what, by the way, you're going to go through. And wouldn't it be great if we learned when we all did sex ed in like 6th or 7th grade, if we actually learned about what happens after the babies? Actually, I don't even think they talk about that. They just tell you how to like not get pregnant or how babies are made. But wouldn't it be nice to lay out what happens to a woman's body so we're not in shock and awe? So hopefully these generations coming up won't have to suffer like we did and think that we're all going crazy. And so I know you've got a lot of online resources. So before I ask you sort of my final, it's to have like the final proclamation, what resources can my listeners avail themselves of right now while they wait for the book to come out?
Sure. On our website at thepauselife.com and, in my link in bio on social media, we have what we call the Menopause Empowerment Guide. And so it's 17 pages of PDF with lots of links and resources, but how to find a menopause provider, someone who's been certified or has dedicated their lives to menopause care, what questions to ask at your OB-GYN's appointment, what labs you should probably look for, what supplements I recommend with links to different options, what HRT is, what are your options, what should you be asking your doctor, what to probably stay away from, etc. It's just a really quick and dirty overall guide. People are printing them out and taking them to their doctors. Some of my friends in out of state that I did training with are showing me my guide, like that their patients they're texting me with, oh my God, my patient walked in with your guide today. I'm like in Ohio. And so it's just really awesome. We have 68,000 that have gone out so far, because you sign up with your email and I can count the emails. So, and we email it to you. So yeah, 68,000 people have downloaded the guide. It's pretty exciting.
Oh, it's so amazing. I mean, I wish I had this, any of this when I was in my 40s and starting to just, experience all of this. So I'm glad thank you for doing all that you're doing. So I want to ask you sort of my final question before I have you complete a statement. We've talked a lot about menopause, midlife, hormones and diet and all of that. And I know a lot of women, it can feel like really heavy and overwhelming and like, oh my God, there's so much to do. But let's flip it. What do you think the best thing is about this time in life right now?
Oh my God, my give a shit factor is gone. I don't care what people think. A lot less. I am just living my best life for me. I've been able to prioritize myself for the first time. And if I want to not go down the road of my elders, then this is what I need to do right now.
I love that. So I have everyone on the show complete this sentence. I'm not too fucking old to
do anything.
Boom. Boom. And that's really what it's all about. So ladies, please visit Dr. Haber's site. It's all those links and all of the resources are going to be in the show notes. Make sure you're following her on Instagram because she's so generous with her time and all the information. You are just out there cranking it out. And thank you on behalf of women in menopause everywhere, which is how many of us? Like 50 or 60 million?
Billions, like billions across the world.
Yeah, it's across the world. So we need this. So keep on keeping on. Thank you for doing everything that you're doing, Dr. Haber. And it's just been a joy talking with you. Ladies, I have to let her go, sadly. I would keep you on for another hour because there's so much more to talk about, but please get her book. I'm going to link all this in the show notes. You can pre-order the book, have that in the arsenal, the new menopause. Shiny. She's showing me the cover if you're just listening to this, but you might see this video clip online. And just get in with everything that she's doing and download that resource guide because that's really, I wish I had that, like I said, like 10 years ago. Like, what in the hell is happening to me? So we don't have to question it anymore. We've got those resources. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today and my listeners. And I just appreciate everything that you're doing to help us thrive in the second and best half of life.